everyone. I'm going to be talking about narrative transportation. This is a term you potentially haven't heard yet before, so I'm going to explain it to you. But I first need to thank these two really amazing graduate students who have been working with me on this for the past several years as a part of a grant I had from the National Center for Atmospheric Research. So Sam Brown is on the left, and Steidle-Nix is on the right, and they have been really thinking about some of the theoretical contributions of this paper. So I just want to start off by, I did this yesterday as I was sitting in PCD. I wanted to look up how popular storytelling and maps has become in the literature. Obviously, this is not in any way some comprehensive thing. I just looked it up on Google Scholar. But there's a growing interest, obviously, in storytelling with maps. And I think that's pretty clear, too, from this session on narrative storytelling, or narratives and maps, or whatever the title of this session is. This includes some of my own work on the importance of storytelling for climate change communication. This work was published in 2020, but I conducted a series of interviews with journalists and government agency cartographers in 2016, 2017. And this particular quote from someone at the New York Times really stood out to me, that their primary goals are storytelling goals. How can we make the map and the story sink in for that reader? How can we communicate this to the reader better or easily? And is there a way to kind of show this type of thing so that it sticks out to the reader more? So this kind of brought up some two main questions that I've been thinking about. In what ways can we measure whether our maps tell stories, perhaps effectively or not? And how can we improve our maps to actually tell more effective stories? So stories and storytelling are kind of a fundamental aspect of humanity. They're a key aspect in child development. You know, when your kid goes from just kind of being able to talk about things in the world to kind of putting things in sequence is really important. And they're how we connect with each other. They're an important way of conveying information. Some researchers argue that we're kind of wired to apprehend reality through story-formatted presentations of information. And communication researchers really tout the potential of stories and storytelling as a way to connect with readers' emotions and their personal experiences. So story maps, map stories, and storytelling with maps. This group here at NACIS, you might easily want to critique or criticize Esri for the story map platform, but I'm, as someone who used to work for Esri and very much could critique them in a million different ways, quite honestly, this is a really, really amazing platform, right? It's made maps, making story maps really accessible to people. And it's for Esri, it's brought them out of the kind of desktop GIS domain, but it's made it really accessible to everyone from elementary school students to CEOs trying to convey information and communicate things that are partially geographic, but also have some other element to them. Outside of the Esri platform, stories that are touted beyond those who might just use the story map platform. And this is kind of given rise to their platform even more because there is this market to tell stories with maps. All right, so this brought me to the narrative imagery model of the transportation imagery model of narrative persuasion, which I call narrative transportation theory, and is often called that in the literature, because the other one is a mouthful. This isn't integrative melding of attention, imagery, and feelings. And really what this is this immersion into a story. It's the process of being lost in a story. You can probably imagine or think about a time when you read a book and you were so involved in that book that your partner might have been yelling at the dog in the other room and you didn't even notice because you were so engrossed in this thing. That is narrative transportation. It is defined by the degree to which the plot activates the story receiver's imagination through your own empathetic connection with the characters. And there's 3 consequences of narrative transportation. So after you are transported, readers, they leave their world of origin, and that world of origin, your living room or wherever you are, becomes inaccessible physically or psychologically. You experience strong emotions and motivations. This happens even when the reader knows the story is not true. You return from your journey changed by the experience, and individuals are more transported when they adopt the beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that are implied by the story. In short, this can be really persuasive. So narrative transportation can occur regardless of the fictionality, as I mentioned, or the medium through which readers experience it. So even when the reader knows it's fiction, they can still kind of feel like they're there. They can still be changed and adopt those beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors implied by the story. When creating a story that transports readers, writers and designers must create a coherent narrative, though. So this means that aspects of the story must make sense in the real world or the fictional world that is created in the story. So if there's something that doesn't seem right within the world that was created in the story, readers are likely to question it and will not be transported. So I have these images from the Barbie movie where there's all sorts of things that don't happen in the real world. For instance, in the Barbie dream house, Barbie just floats down from the top of the Barbie dream house onto her pool deck. That obviously isn't how things work in the real world, as she finds out, but that is kind of okay in Barbie land, right? That exists in that concept. So even though we know that's not how things work, because we're in that land of Barbie, we know that that's okay. And the same goes for the bottom right photo, right? Where she knows that she's putting her hair together really perfectly, yet she can't actually see her reflection in that fake mirror in her Barbie dream house. Other features of the story that determine whether a reader is transported is the development of the characters, the emotional intensity of the story, and the tension created. Again, these need to be coherent and make sense. It's best when that persuasive message is completely ingrained in the story. It's not just said by the characters. And if you've seen the Barbie movie, you know that there is lots of kind of important aspects of feminism and in the story, but it's not just said by Barbie, it is kind of ingrained in the entire movie. So. The kind of crux of what I wanted to talk about today is this. There are 2 different valid measures of narrative transportation. And these include questions like, I could picture myself in the scenes of the event described in the narrative. I was mentally involved in the narrative while reading it. I wanted to learn how it ended. It affected me emotionally. I had a vivid image of the character in the story. The transportation scale on the left is a larger panel of questions, while the one on the right was developed about 15 years later, and it's a series of only 6 questions that was determined valid as a way of measuring this. So I think this could be really important for when we want to assess whether our story is really getting our reader to kind of feel like they're there, to really feel like they're on this path in the Northwest Passage, or to feel like they're climbing K2, right? We might want to measure this using this transportation scale. So while narrative transportation is an experiential state change, narrative persuasion refers to some changes in the reader's outlook after being transported. It leads to, this persuasion leads to reduced counter-arguing, connecting with the characters, developing mental imagery, engaging emotionally, and through the story's structure and causality. Transporting stories appear to reduce people's urge to resist or argue against the message. So if you were really transported by the Barbie movie, you're not going to go and question some of the themes in the movie as much as somebody who perhaps wasn't convinced by feeling like they were part of Barbie's world there. People who are transported may take on the attitudes and beliefs of characters they identify most within the story. So maybe if you most identified with Ken in Barbie, then you're going to come out with some very different beliefs and attitudes than I did in identifying with some of the Barbies in the movie. These images and beliefs can be longer lasting because you conjure up that imagery from that story. So I saw the Barbie movie on opening day, and here I am, 4 months later, still talking about it, and I haven't seen it since, but that it was very, very vivid for me, and so has stuck with me 4 months later. I'm also somebody who never remembers movies, so I think it was a particularly powerful movie for me. This can also happen when the story evokes emotion through things like suspense or the emotions that a character experiences in a story. So I know that Garrett is going to talk about some nonlinear space in our next talk, but I wanted to just kind of talk about it from this perspective. So we know that maps are not linear like a book or a movie. They allow map readers to skip around, and we know that map readers do just that. This is an old study by Sarah Fabricant, but the readers are all over. This is a gaze plot. They don't always follow a particular pattern. They don't always follow the pattern that we expect them to. I thought Soren's example of trying to make the readers kind of read it from left to right as opposed to right to left was interesting. So that's kind of a way to be thinking about this. But stories, on the other hand, are told. Readers don't benefit from skipping ahead, and you don't benefit from jumping to the end and reading the last page. If you're Harry, and when Harry met Sally, right, he turns to the last page because he doesn't want to not know how things end if he dies. But that's really weird. We think about people who do that. That's just wrong. That's not how you engage with stories. You're not going to fast forward through your movie to get to the ending. But we know that map readers do just that. And spatial relationships are really clear on maps, but causal relations are not so much. All right, so some key challenges and opportunities. We need to make causal relationships really explicit on maps. We need to think about how we might hold back by creating a story, transporting story through pacing and building suspense. And then we need to create identifiable characters and realistic worlds. Because I'm running out of time, I'm just going to quickly go over one example, although I think many of you have attempted to create really transporting stories, and it would be fun to just test a bunch of them using this transportation scale. This is an example by cartographer Margaret Pierce, who focuses on this narration of a 18th century fur trader, John McDonnell. And she focuses her readers and by increasing their attention on a particular character to develop this kind of subjective point of view. And this is engendered by diary inscriptions of MacDonald's journey, whose journey is kind of the subject of this map. And you follow him overcoming hardship, experiencing good and bad days, conquering these experiences, and Pierce really recognizes the gaps that exist between some of these diary entries that the map is made up of. And that these are important in pacing the reader to kind of build suspense between different days and what this person experienced. She also does this through the use of color to kind of denote mood, so she's trying to incorporate emotionality into the map. And then the map, through its design, reinforces that linearity that I think is sometimes lost in maps by people kind of gazing all around by kind of sequencing, having a sequence. Because I'm out of time, I will stop there. But I just hopefully will have this paper fully written up at some point in the future. So thank you so much.